And we're back, and it is COMP2068 in the winter 2016 semester, and it's week 3, lesson 3, part 2. And I really want to talk about assignment number 1, which is posted up on Blackboard for you guys. Okay, let's take a look at assignment number 1. I'm just going to pull all these down. We just did a little bit of a deploy, and we're going to go over that, what failed, what didn't. A lot of stuff fails, right? I don't know why that's up. That's really weird. Okay. Yeah, let's go into that folder. So I've got assignment number 1. It's the portfolio website, right? So yours will look like this too. There's 2 parts to this. Part 1 is due next week, Wednesday, like I said, at midnight. And what I want you to do with that, if you actually look up what these look like, let's take a look. So I'm going to go into Blackboard again, see if it's up here. So part 1, I need a sitemap. We're going to talk about how to create a sitemap, right? And you could also use a mind map for this. We'll talk about mind map, site mapping. It's just a high-level structure for your site. Show me what your site's going to be how your site's going to be structured. That's what I really want. And I want you to set up that site structure just like we just did. We just set up a site structure for a very simple Node app, but we're going to make it an Express app, all right, for next week. I want you to set up your GitHub repository and auto-deploy to Azure or some other cloud service. And again, this is what's due next week with a couple of links. One link for your GitHub and another link for a cloud service of your choice. I recommend Heroku or Azure. If you're an Azure fan, that's fine. You can also use other things like DigitalOcean or whatever. I don't want you to use GitHub pages. Please don't try and use that. That would be bad. All right? So that's not going to work the way we want it to. So that piece is it's 5% of the 15%, because this whole assignment 1 piece is total 15%. 5% of that is your setup, right? And that's due next week by Wednesday, right? So if you get that piece done, and that's kind of a simple piece to do, it'll get you going. That's the whole idea. Then the following week, the rest of it's due. Okay, this is for experience. This project is not a 1-week project. So if you just do the bare minimum and get your week 1 done and try and deploy everything for week 2 the following week, it won't work. You'll be in trouble, right? Please don't do that. Start now, and this piece here will be easy to do, right? I'm going to give you some options to make this thing go, and we're going to talk about it today, and we're going to talk about it again next week, right? But at the end of the day, I recommend you get going on it and don't wait for not next week to start part 2 the next week. That would be really bad. You only have a week, and there's a bunch of stuff I'm asking you to do. Let's take a look at what I'm asking you to do here, right? And I hate to say these things, but the details of what kills you, it's worth 40 points, if you will, but it's out of 15%. So 5% is just setup. 10% is the details. Let's talk about the details. So you're going to make your own personal portfolio website using Express.js, and you're going to implement the Ejs Templating Engine, right? Ejs is a template that we can use, right, to kind of serve up your site files, right? Your site must be hosted live on a cloud service like Azure, Heroku, or DigitalOcean, right? There's some example portfolios that we did this together, Rich and I, last semester, so you can look at a couple of portfolio examples. So what are you going to make? You're going to make a 5-page site. I want you to have your home page, an About Me page, a projects page, a services page, and a contact me page, right? All right, please, what I don't want is, I mean, think about this as your portfolio. So, tomorrow you're gonna try and sell yourself to an employer, right? That's what it is. You're gonna market yourself. Think about this as a marketing opportunity. Please don't give me the bare minimum, right? If I just see squares and some basic stuff, I want to see images. I want to look at other portfolio sites to get some ideas of what you can possibly create. You don't have to go crazy here. I mean, I still want you to kind of deliver what you need to do, but you don't have to go super crazy to make it a insane site. You only have 2 weeks to kind of put this thing out. We're going to be building on this thing. So once you create your portfolio site, there's going to be another assignment, assignment 2. We're going to angularize it, right, and add additional. We're going to also add some security to it and so on in the back end. We're going to continue to build on this portfolio site that you're going to build now. So if you do a crappy portfolio site for your assignment number 1 and you don't do that well, then it'll just roll from there. It'll be it'll make you smell for the whole time, right? It'll be like I have to hold my nose out. It's like it'll be a bad smell the whole time, right? It'll be bad. So please work hard on this first piece, which is worth 15%. The other pieces are less than this one, not as worth as much, but a lot of work too. So I want you to create this 5-page. So what are the details that we're talking about here? You need to use Ejs Templating Engine. There's 2 templating engines you can use with Express. One is called Jade. Well, there's 2 main ones. There's other ones too. One is called Jade. The other one is called Ejs. Please don't use Jade. Jade may mess you up. Okay, because all my examples I'm going to be doing is with Ejs. Okay, that's one. Again, it says your site should include at least 2 view templates. So one for your home page. There's a template. So your home page is going to look a certain way. And probably for your contact me page. I mean, that page is going to look different because you're going to have some kind of form, right? That's going to be, so that there's going to be 2 different templates right there, right? An express route must exist for each page of your site. So note, you will need to use app.get. This is the kind of the method with a res render views, locals, or whatever method to render each view. I'm just telling you that's how it is. I mean, you can do it different ways, but those most likely this app.get and res render is what you're going to have to use. 4 marks for functionality for that one, okay, and 4 marks for and total of 12 marks here for this little section. If you think about it, right? So 4 marks and 4 marks and 4 marks. All right, your site will use the new structure created by the Express generator. We're going to talk about the Express generator today, right? How to create. First, we're going to make a simple Express app. And then we're going to use the Express generator to create all of our stuff. We're going to make a new application folder. And the Express generator is going to generate everything for us. There's going to be disadvantages there. We're going to have to work with the Express generator, right? So when we look at Express, and by the way, even though I say you will use the Express generator, what if you came to me and said, Tom, I don't want to use the Express generator. I just want to make a custom Express app from scratch, right? I would accept that, right? And the reason for it is because the Express generator, whenever you generate, like you build out an app from a generator, there's going to be pieces of the app that you don't understand because it's not your code. So I'm taking somebody else's template and I'm spitting out a whole application framework, right? That's fantastic. But that means you have to understand every piece of it. And for the most part, you won't, not in the beginning, right? So that may mess you up, right? So you may choose to go the route of, I don't want to use the Express generator, Tom. It's too hard to learn, to figure out, and I want to just use Express, and I'll be happy with just using Express on its own. You don't need the Express generator. Okay, now you can generate, and let's read this the right way. Generate or create your structure with the Express generator or by hand. And note, you must use the -e option if you're using the generator, okay? So however you generate, whether you make it yourself by hand or generate it, I'll give you 3 marks. I don't mind, as long as the structure is there that we talked about. Your JavaScript, CSS, and multimedia asset files, if any, should be moved to separate folders, just like we've already done. I've got my content, and I've got my scripts, and there'll be another file we haven't touched, which is maybe some kind of, you know, an assets folder. I'd probably put all my multimedia assets inside there, right? I want to split them up because organization, when you make a large application or a larger application, is really important. Okay, cool. You will define routes for all your site pages in the index.js file in your routes, right? In your routes folder. So we're going to talk about the site structure, how do we create those things. And then in your views folder, it will contain all your Ejs page templates in your views folder, okay? So again, you can do all this by hand. You don't have to use Express. We'll use Express to kind of make it out. And the other thing we can do is we can use Express to kind of generate the application the way we want it, and then we can remove stuff. We can take stuff away. We don't have to use everything in Express that the Express generator gives us. So it can help us get going. That's what it creates something called a scaffold. So we use a scaffold to kind of get going with an application. Then we fill in the blanks. That's what we're doing, right? That's not a bad way of doing things, because imagine if you're going to start off with nothing, like we just did. Imagine we just took an hour to set up like a basic server page, right? So imagine if every time you set something up, it took an hour, an hour, an hour, an hour. But you have someone who's created a basic application scaffold, and that it's done. You just press Express, you know, generate Express -e, and you're done. So to me, it's like, it's crazy, right? You should do it that way, but you may not want to because it's challenging to learn. All right, all your code, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery, whatever else you use, is error-free. All right, so if it's erroring out, or if I get a bunch of errors in the console, you'll lose marks. Well, actually, 1 mark. Your site uses appropriate JavaScript libraries and that function through the use of links to your various CDNs. So I've taught you how to do things with Bower to do things locally, but on a deployment target like this, when we're deploying to Azure or Heroku, we want to use CDNs instead, right? And who knows what a CDN is, by the way? Anybody? You get some people are like, I don't know what he's talking about, right? A CDN is the content delivery network. You know, content delivery network means you're going to be targeting something that is going to be hosted by Google or Microsoft. So the same libraries that I'm talking about front-end libraries here, like jQuery, okay? Other libraries for Node and NPM and all that stuff, there's no CDNs for those, right? But for jQuery, for Bootstrap, for all those kind of libraries, front-end libraries, they're already hosted up online. You don't need to use Bower for those, right? You can just use the CDNs and you're golden, right? So we'll talk about how to use the CDNs as well. And you can certainly look that up. The latest version of your site will be hosted live and error-free on some kind of cloud hosting service for 5 months, right? Site structure. All right, include internal documentation for your site. So some kind of comment header, you know, for your JavaScript files. It should include all your JavaScript files that you write. Should have your file name, your author's name, the website name, your file description, like what's the file for, all that stuff. It should be about you, right? If you don't, you lose 2 marks. Ensure you include section headers for all your HTML structure, CSS style sections, and JavaScript functions. So if you make a new function and you make it do something else, or you make a new class with TypeScript, I want documentation. I want to see inside what this class does. So create a header and discuss what it's doing. Make sure you use contextual variable names. So please don't use X, Y's, I's, and J's. If you're going to use X, Y, and Z, it's because you're doing something in 3D. Okay. Otherwise, if you use X, Y, and Z for something else, I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. It's got to make sense. Ensure you include inline comments that describe your UI design and functionality. So again, avoid over-commenting. But if you're going to describe your UI, so here I'm creating my panel for this. You know, that's okay to put those kind of things in there. But if it's something that's really apparent, like here's my header, right? Please don't do that. Like don't over-comment. It's crazy, right? Share your files on GitHub. I mean, you're getting paid for this next week, right? So GitHub and cloud hosting, that happens next week with your site structure. So this stuff I'm reviewing next week. Your site structure, which is here, so deploying on a cloud service, auto deploying, all that stuff, and GitHub. And internal documentation, you should start that stuff going on for next week. I'm going to be looking at all those things, as well as a mind map or some kind of site map. And we'll talk about that in a second. Optional site features. Somehow or another, you really work hard and you learn AngularJS on your own, right? Just saying, right? Or you know it already, right? And you want to include an Angular front end, right? So you build an Angular front end, or use another generator. Instead of using Express generator, use Yeoman or something else like that. Be very cautious, please. If you use something like a Yeoman generator and there's another generator out there that scaffolds your stuff out. Remember I talked about Express being challenging to understand? Some stuff you get from Yeoman is really hard to understand the structure. You have to really look in, understand the files and work with them in order to understand what different endpoints are going to be exposed with the generator. Okay, create a working contact form. You know, because the contact form you're going to create in your 5-page site for now doesn't have to be working, doesn't have to be functioning, right? Because that means that you're going to connect it on the back end somewhere, right, to make it function somehow, send email and all that stuff. That's up to you if you want to do that. For an extra 4 bonus marks to make it work. How about this? An external document that includes page wireframes, an explanation of technologies used, and a style guide. If you're really that kind of person, if you're more on the style side or on the web side, if you know how to use, if you make a style guide, I give you 4 bonus marks to create a style guide that give you some wireframes that kind of make, you know, kind of show me what it looks like. This is great practice if you're going to do your final project, because your final project will require you to do a style guide. You and your partner, whoever they are, or partners, because usually I'll allow 2 or 3 people to work together on your final project because it's big, and it's going to be using Express. You're going to use MongoDB for the backend database, and potentially Angular, which is always an option, right? I can't make Angular a requirement even now because we won't have a lot of time with Angular, right? And really, Angular kind of deserves its own course, right? We've talked about that before. So that's really it in a nutshell. I mean, oh, one more. Attach a full domain name to your site. So that's kind of easy marks, right? So you buy your own domain name, and by the way, you can get this from Namecheap, right? If you go to Namecheap and you get that little package that's included in your student pack. So if I go to dreamspark.com, and if you subscribe to this GitHub educational pack, right? And if I click on Get Your Pack, notice how it gives you a bunch of stuff. And one of the things it gives you is a free domain hosted by Namecheap. So you get 1 year domain name registration for free and an SSL certificate. So that's totally worthwhile signing up for that. It's free for students. So if you haven't done that already, you can get your own custom domain, and you can point to Azure or Heroku, whichever one you choose, with a custom domain. And then it kind of makes your site look professional. When you go to an interview, you say, instead of like my website at azurewebsites.net, make it so it's like myname.com, whatever it is, right? That's much better, right? Okay, submitting your work. So again, this is where the marks break down. I've kind of created this rubric with Rich to kind of show when it is. These dates are wrong. It's not October 7th. Rich had put these in last time. The dates are up here. So February 3rd, and I can't update this right now. February 3rd is the first week. That's when the first thing is due. And part 2 is due, the final thing is due the next Wednesday, right, at midnight. So you have a couple weeks. It sounds like a long way away to make a 5-page site. It's not a long way away. This is a lot of work to do. It's worth 15% of your final mark. Please don't take this lightly, right? This will affect the way we do things for the rest of the course, right? And there's a lot of learnings here. One thing it's going to do is it's going to make you learn Express and learn Node and all that kind of stuff. It's going to get you your hands dirty on this one, right? This is not a combined group project. This is an individual project that you'll be doing. And please don't copy other people's projects. So I don't want to see the exact same project in 5 different ways. If I do, all the people that have the exact same project, you're going to get 0, right? So I want each individual project, yours got to look like your own. I highly recommend, to make yours different than everyone else's, you create your own logo, all right? And I mean that. I mean, sometimes, it's not required, but I recommend it only that you can differentiate between your project and somebody else's, right? Also, the use of private repos is encouraged, all right? You don't have to use a private repo, and I'm not going to make you do it, but if you notice here, GitHub is required, right? And like we said before, if I go back here, if you go to this GitHub pack, you get 5 private repositories because you're a student, right? And all you need to do is include me as a collaborator, right? And if I can access your site, right? And please include Tsiliopoulos@hotmail.com as a collaborator. Don't include like Tom Tsiliopoulos at Georgian College, because I don't have a repo like that. I don't have an identity that way. So if you make me a collaborator, use my last name at hotmail.com, and we're golden, right? And that's that's who I am online anyway. You won't be able to find me online if you don't look for that. So look for my last name, and you can include me as a collaborator, and then only you and I can see your site files, right? So they're safe. No one's going to try and steal your stuff or whatever, right? If you're worried about that. For the most part, most people not worried about that, and they make a public repository, because I'll be honest with you, when I see stuff, I'm going to look at each one of your stuff over and over again, and I'm going to tell this one looks identical in every way to this one, right? So please don't try and do that. It's really easy to catch people cheating on this one. So I highly recommend make your own. Make your site look like it's like your own site. It's your portfolio. This has to be about you. One note about images. Okay, sometimes people will include like really skewed images. That's really bad. So please don't skew your images on your website. What I mean by skewing is like the image is normally this big, like regular, I don't know, some kind of ratio, and for whatever reason it doesn't fit, so you do one of these, right? That's bad. But what it'll do is it'll make your face look like this, right? Or it'll stretch your face if you go the other way around, right? Don't make your images that way. Keep the aspect ratio the same, right? So whatever the width over the height, make sure that ratio is the same when you change the size of your images to fit on your screen, right? Because it would look really bad. And also choose a cool color scheme. There's some really good examples of what you can do. And if you don't know how to do stuff, and again, I gave you some examples online, you can always look at the awards site. I always like looking at that for some examples. There's a really good site. So if I go to awards, and this is you get website awards for this one, the best website awards. There's some really good examples of some cool stuff that you can look at here. And if I look at portfolio, now there's some really cool portfolio sites here. I don't expect you to come to this level, okay? But you can get some cool ideas for what to do. Like someone said last semester, hey Tom, I want to do a continuous scrolling site. It's 5 pages, but they're on 1 page. Is that okay? Yeah, it is. Show me your plan. And then if I approve some changes, I'm okay with it, right? Like example, let's take a look at this one. I'm just looking at some random ones here. So here's this, this one page right here. Let's take a look. And some of them work and sometimes they don't. So this is a portfolio site. Now if you notice, it's kind of neat. If I move my mouse around, you can see that there's some interactivity here. This has been the nominee for a website awards, right? Notice if I hover over here, I get a bit of an underline happening. Projects about, some interesting stuff. It's not that great. But for example, they've got some social links here. You know, here's my about page down here. And if I click on it, you can see some stuff. Notice how there's some, you know, again, some interesting stuff. So there's a little bit of parallax in terms of when I move my mouse around. That's kind of cool, right? Do I expect this from you? No. No, I don't. But get some ideas. Maybe there's some cool ideas. Don't make your site look black and white or gray, right? Give it some color, man and woman, right? Right? Make it look like it's your own, I'm saying, right? Because otherwise, if it just looks black and gray, if I was an employer, looked at your site, I'd be like, oh, they don't know what they're doing, right? Because part of it is function, but part of it is form, right? So I'm not asking you to be artists here, but I'm asking you to take a look at a template that might really work cool for you. And how about those templates? What if you download and say, like, I want to buy a template, Tom? Is that allowed? No, it's not. Don't buy like a template from, you know, some kind of like, you know, template site that's out there and pay $50 so that your site looks nice. Don't do that, please. Just look at some examples and see if you can mimic them in with HTML and CSS. Okay, so here's another one. Let's take a look at this one. That one was pretty droll. I want to look at some better ones. Okay, so this guy, he's got a theme that he created. Here's a theme. Now he's got a continuous scroll. Here's a continuous scroll with a little bit of some interactivity here. Big, again, he's using all the latest kind of stuff. What he's doing is he's got large images that take up the entire, you know, the screen, right? So you got there's not a lot of content here, right? Take a look, like a few words, big image, right? And that might be the same for you. You might have a, you know, few words because you don't have a lot of experience or haven't had a lot of projects, but you have some really cool images of a project you did. Take some screenshots and include those in your front page. Show the person what you do. Who are you? Are you a programmer, analyst? Are you a, you know, what do you do? Are you a web developer? Do you want to be a game developer? What do you do, right? And kind of talk about this up front. Notice that this is a continuous scroll site, right? And as I hover over, there's some really cool hover effects that they've created with probably some kind of jQuery library or something like that, or even a custom JavaScript library they made to kind of create some attractiveness, right? So as I hover over with my mouse, you know, it moves the image around to kind of make it so that it shows that you are hovering over that image, right? Do you have to do this? No, you don't. But I mean, it might give you some ideas of how this continuous scroll site can look for you. Now, this is a theme that he's created that he will probably sell you, right? This guy. Please don't buy this theme. Just saying, right? But the idea is good, and there's some other ones too. If you go back to the award site, they have a bunch of them. They have some really cool ideas, some stuff to differentiate these, you know, these designers, and some very basic ideas as well. Like, it doesn't have to be this way. That they're you know, these awesome sites, but notice that most of them have kind of an original layout with, you know, some color choices that you've made, right? And they've stuck with those color choices throughout, right? Now, if you're not great with colors, if you're not an artist, you can always go to Adobe Color, or color.adobe.com. I think it is. Let's see, try this out. Color.adobe.com. Color.adobe.com. There we go. And what you can do here, and I think I might be zoomed in too much, or maybe not. What you can do here is, I don't know if I made it worse or better. Yeah, maybe it's the same. It's kind of growing and shrinking. What you can do here is you can kind of decide your color theme. So if I want to make it so that it's complementary colors, which is kind of weird, I could choose kind of some main colors over here and switch my wheel. And then, so for example, let's say I made this, you know, kind of a blue and, you know, goldish brown kind of color, right? Color theme. Stick to a color theme so your site looks, you know, homogeneous, right? You don't want like clashing blues or some weird colors that you come up with, especially not oranges, like not really bright oranges as your main color, or bright yellows and greens. That's just not happening, guys and girls, right? I mean, unless that's really your detail. But a lot of stuff that's in these days are panels for your pages, like big panels that take up the whole page. Please don't hijack my scroll. I don't want my scroll to be hijacked. I hate that when I go to a page and all of a sudden I scroll down and all of a sudden, poof, I get another page. Poof, I get another page. I don't like that too much. I'm not really big on hijack scroll and all that kind of stuff. But you can see that there's some stuff that can help you. All right, so colors for your sites is kind of important. And we can always go into some other stuff, mind mapping. So if I wanted to look at some mind mapping software, I talked about a sitemap for you guys to help you build out your structure. And I'm doing this only because, not to be a pain in the ass, by the way, but to kind of just give me your site structure. There's a free site that you can go to called bubble.us, right? bubbl.us, right? And if I click on Start Brainstorming, this actually is pretty cool to create a sitemap or you know, kind of a brainstorm. Notice how I have a node in the middle here. This could be my home page, so I can kind of go home page, right? And then from my home page, I have all these other links. I have my about page, you know, kind of thing. This is kind of a sitemap, right? And you know, and then maybe from my home page, I also have kind of like a, you know, a social kind of social page for all my social connections. Like, you know, for example, I connect with Twitter and I don't know, Facebook. I don't know whatever else you connect with these days, right? I try and stay away from Instagram myself. That's just me, right? Some people love Instagram and Snapchat and all that stuff. I'm not a big, for me personally, I'm not a big fan, but my daughter and my son, they love Snapchat. There's some really cool things you can do. So, I mean, I may include the social media that you use. And the primary ones that you want to use for an interview is LinkedIn, Facebook, if you're going to use Facebook. Be careful with Facebook. Twitter's okay too, but be careful if you have a lot of stuff like where you're doing one of these, right? And Facebook, please omit that, right? Clean up your social media, because you know what? If I'm an employer, I'm going to search you out and try and figure out who you are, right? And if it's really ugly what I see online, like if I can search who you are and then I see just you partying with your friends, I don't know, may not bode so well, right? But if I see you like as a professional on LinkedIn, you're a student and you're looking for to be a web developer, that kind of thing, that's what I want to look for. I'm gonna compare your resume with your LinkedIn profile. I will do that, right? And I'm gonna go, resume says A, LinkedIn profile says B, C, and D, and E, and it doesn't mention A at all, right? I don't understand, right? So that's a problem if there's a disconnect. Or it's the other way around. I see a lot of stuff on your resume, not anything on your LinkedIn. Again, it's kind of a mindset, but LinkedIn is a very important tool these days. Okay, so you can continue to add additional site files. So again, I said social here, and don't show this again. Here we go, social. And let's say I want to add some other stuff here, like my contact page. So here's my contact page. Maybe my contact page will be my social page. Different, I don't know, maybe I'll have different pages the way I want to set my site up, right? Now, the stuff I've given you is the minimum requirements that you need to set up your site, right? Minimum requirements. You want to add more stuff to your portfolio site, all the power to you, right? The nicer it looks, the more marks I'll give you, right? If it looks like crap, right? If it's really ugly looking from a UI perspective, you're going to lose marks on UI. I'll say, this looks really bad, and the colors are really unbalanced here, right? Or, you know, the images are skewed, right? Or, you know, this is inappropriate to put on your site. One of those kind of things. This is about you. There's been some concern about addresses. Like I say, you know, put a picture of you on the site. Just one of those things might be there for you, right? And then I don't want to put a picture of myself on the site. I want to put an avatar. No avatars, all right? There's no gravatars. It's got to be about you. This is. I look at this portfolio. It's about you. Show me you. Get a nice picture done somewhere. It takes 10 seconds to do a selfie, right? The selfie may not be the picture you want, right? Make it so that it looks professional. You're gonna maybe give this one into an interview, right? So this is part of the ancillary learnings we're going to do here in this course. It's not just about mean stack, right? All right. So contact. Maybe instead of products, you might have projects, a projects page, which you link to. I definitely would want to see one of those, a projects page, and others. Maybe some services you provide. Do you make web pages? Like, what do you do? Services. Maybe interest. Like, I really love programming. You know, you should say probably something. If you're a programmer, you might want to say something like that in your code, or, you know, something. Look online. There's some really cool examples of things you can borrow from other sites that you might include in your own, right? Questions around this, right? So this sitemap idea, you want to go in more detail. You want to go as detailed as you can with your sitemap, right? This is your front end. This is not your back end. I'm not talking about your back-end structure with your Express generator and all that. That's not what I'm looking for here. I'm looking at the front-end views that's going to be displayed for the user. What's the user going to see? That's what I want for your sitemap. That's what you have 100% control over. Even if you use the Express generator or some kind of Yeoman scaffolding program or whatever, it doesn't matter. This, you have to have 100% control over. All right, questions around assignment 1, right? Lots of work. Please start now, right? Don't wait. Next week would be bad, right? And you can almost get the first piece done for the most part from a site structure perspective. I'm going to be reviewing everything next week, Wednesday, right? So as soon as I get them on Wednesday, they're due Friday. They're due Thursday. The next day I'll start to do them. Here's the thing, 20% loss for the first day, right? So if you don't get it done by Wednesday and it's done by Thursday, that's a big 20% loss. So out of 15% as an example, or the second piece is 10%, that's big. That's like now you're running out of 8 out of 10, right? Even if your site is awesome, right? So please don't go crazy to make your site awesome and then be late. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? 10% for every additional day. I won't accept things after the Monday. So the Monday after, it doesn't make sense anyway. 20% for Thursday, 10%, that's 30. Right? Because it won't make any sense. You'll just get, it's just going to make it so it's ridiculous, right? If there's an extraneous circumstance why you can't get it done, the only thing I'm going to accept is a doctor's note or some kind of other medical emergency, some kind of family emergency. Otherwise, there's no extensions. I'm just letting you know ahead of time, right? So please work hard, get her done, right? You can certainly work with your colleagues and say, hey, this is what I got. What do you got? I got this. What did you add? I added this piece. But please don't make yours look like theirs. Yours is going to be yours, right? I don't want to look at them and go, that's the same, that's the same, that's the same. Okay, these 3 people, 0, right? I don't want to do that. That would be very bad. Bad for me and bad for you, right? By the way, I've looked at these portfolio sites now for the last 5 years, right? So if I see stuff, I'm going to notice, right? And my Google foo is strong, right? Yeah, I can Google things like the best of them. So if you get your code from somewhere else or you get a template from somewhere, I'll find out. Like seriously, it won't be that hard. And if it won't be now, it'll be the next time. And I'll just go back and give you 0 later, right? Even if I'm marking, I give you a nice mark. If I go back and go, wow, this is a copy of someone else's site. Wow, I didn't realize this for assignment number 1, right? Now I'm on assignment number 2. Well, you get 0 for that, right? So please don't do that, please. I mean, I have you for the whole semester. Let's have a good time together. I have to put it out there because, you know, it's one of the things that happens every single semester. Someone gets 0, right, on an assignment or whatever. And it's really painful for me because it takes a lot of time out of the, out of my life to go into the, to the dean and all this kind of stuff. And I hate doing it. It's just horrendous, right? Every semester. Okay, questions around assignment 1, please. Again, first part's due next week, Wednesday. Please start. And it's not that difficult to get done. All right, how do we get started on this thing, right? Because I talked about Express, right? And this is an Express assignment. We've done Node up until now. And we've seen that Node is a back-end technology that runs without any index.html file, right? So what is this Express I talk of? Well, let's take a look at it. I'm just going to go into Express.js, right? And under Express.js, we've already included this with our npm module, right? So I've kind of gone in npm install Express. I've done that already. And Express is moving on, eh? So I've done this npm install Express -- save. This is the regular version of Express without the generator. Okay, cool. So under getting started, one thing with Express, if I scroll down under Hello World, here's my Hello World, notice that there's some differences here between this option that we have and our current Node site. So let's modify the little piece of code we have right now and change it from a Node app, a Node server, to an Express server. All right, and let's see the differences here. Notice that it's a little bit lighter weight, and some more control, right, than we had before. The app get is really looking at a root. That's what it is. This / here is the root node. So if I want to look at different pages, and let's make a few pages, I can direct this to look at different pages. So right now it's looking at my main page, and I'm responding with a hello world. There's other things we can respond with, by the way. Like, for example, I can send the whole file, like an index.html file, which we'll do today. So let's do this really quickly. So how do I do this? I'm going to go into Visual Studio. I'm going to go back into my server.ts file and have all this stuff. This is nice. Let's comment it out. We're not going to kill it because it's a good example of how you can build a Node app. Notice that I'm also live, so hopefully this will deploy live on Azure when I'm done, right? We're going to space this all down, right? So it's out. It's there, but it's just in the background way down there. And I'm going to do the same kind of thing that I've done here. So I'm using this, example here, and I want to install Express, right? So again, instead of the var keyword, I'm going to use import. So let's go import Express is equal to require. You see this before. Export express. What I'm doing here is I'm getting the express module. Ladies, yeah, I can hear you from here too. Hi, thank you. So I'm getting the express module and I'm loading it in on the back end. So I'm kind of giving it an alias of express. Okay, that's what I've done, just like I did for Node. So think about Express as, instead of Node having to do a lot of stuff manually by itself to do everything that Express will do, Express does a lot of stuff in the back end for you. It's almost like it adds functionality, even though it's still bare bones, right? We can use Express to do things like access MongoDB. We can use Express for a bunch of other things. It's almost like it came out of something called Connect Middleware. And we're going to talk at length more from a theoretical perspective next week. I'm going to put up a little PowerPoint presentation that I have prepared for you that talks about Express and Node and the differences between the two next week. So you'll get that kind of idea. But for now, I want to set up a simple server. How do I do that? And you need this for your site structure for next week. So let's take a look, right? So I need this, and I need these two pieces. I want to make a new app. We're going to say var app is equal to Express. And instead of using the new keyword, because Express is loaded, right, with its own objects, if you will, or classes, if I hover over app, notice that it is of type, remember through type inference, Express. That's the actual namespace it's using. So let's do that. So Express, right, and then dot Express, capital E. My app is an Express app, right? That's what we're doing. So app is the object, right, that we've created by importing the Express module. That's all we're doing. The Express module is packed full of functionality, right, just like Node is. We only kind of scratch the surface with what Node can do, by the way, right? Node is not just a server, right? That's how we're using it, but that's not only the only thing Node can do. Node can do a lot of stuff on its own, but Express packs more functionality into it. Let's look at some of this, all right? And it's done a little bit different. So I'm going to use the app get, and actually in my if you look at what I said for my assignment 1, I said you need to use the app get here, right? Look, app get, path, callback, this kind of structure. Well, here it is. If I go back to here, I'm saying I want to use this app get callback structure, right? So let's just, I'm on Express. I might as well copy it and paste it and see what happens. And I'm going to modify it here because I want to use TypeScript, right? All right, so here's app get. This is perfectly valid, but I want to add some stuff in here. My request, right, is going to be what? It's going to be express dot request, right? And the same thing goes for my response. My response is going to be of type express dot response, right? Why is this important? Because now I can get code hinting on this, right? So instead of responding with a hello world or hello express, this is what we're going to change this to. Hello express, because now before we were hello node, right? Remember down here, hello node. We're going to move. We're upgrading to an express app, right? Okay, cool. So what's this saying? It says on the root, if I just request my localhost, anything that I request on the root takes me and just says hello express. Okay, I can add additional routes right here, right? So for example, if I want to look at info, if I create an info route, then I can send some other message, and we'll try that out in a second. All right, so sorry, gotta get back to this. Now look at, there's no server. I just listen on a port. Now this is, we have to do this kind of the same thing for our port, right? Especially if we're deploying it to Azure with a callback function, and that's it. It's much simpler than the server we create with Node, right? So again, I'm going to do app listen, and if you notice, I'm going to listen on a port. Well, I don't want to listen on a port by number. I want to kind of create a port variable here. So I'm going to say var port, just like we did before, is a number that is equal to, right, process.env.port, or let's say, again, we'll use 3000, right? And we're going to listen on this port. Here we can also use a callback function, just like we did before, which is an anonymous function, where we can respond on the console that says console.log, application or app started, app server started, whatever. Oh, if I can spell. having problems like that today. On port, here, on port, plus port. There we go. Well, there's other ways to do that, of course. And I'm going to transpile. So Command-Shift-B, Control-Shift-B. Transpile. To check this, to see what it actually does on the JavaScript side, let's take a look. It's slightly different. Notice how there's a bunch of extra stuff here, right? I use vars instead of imports, and for the most part, everything else remains the same. Okay, so it is JavaScript you're doing. I'm just using TypeScript to give me some code hinting at this point. Okay, cool. Let's test to see if this works locally. So I'm going to pull up my terminal like I had before, clear it. So let's try this out. Clear the terminal. So clear, or CLS on the Windows machines. And I'm going to type in nodemon, like I showed you before. So nodemon. Okay, cool. Started on port 3000. Let's check it out and see if it works, right? So I'm going to go to Chrome again, and I'm going to go to that local host, right? So it's probably here, and refresh, and now it should say Hello Express. Do you guys see Hello Express? If you don't, something's wrong, right? You didn't transpile, you know, whatever, right? Okay, cool. So this is the one root. So this is the root. This is our kind of our main root. That's what this is, right? And if I want to have additional roots, let's say, for example, I want to type in something else. Like I go back up here. Let's go back to my website. And instead of localhost 3000, I search for something else, like info. I'm going to get cannot get info, right? Because there is no root for info. So let's make one. Let's make it so that it says you've reached info or something like that. How do I do that? Well, I got to go back here, and then I got to add another root. So let's do it by hand this time. So app.get, and then notice how it's listening for string, which is the name. And there's a couple of different constructor signatures. One of them is a string, and the other one is a string with some kind of regular expression. Notice that I can also put in some kind of callback function, which is this piece right here, right? So that's what I'm going to do. So my string is the root. So I'm going to say info, right? So whenever I ask for info, I want to do this. I want to have a callback function with a request, express, request, and a response, express, response. And you know what? One thing we missed up here, for us to have a second root, by the way, let's finish this off and I'll fix it. Up here, to get another root, I want to add in next. Right, so next, put that next variable in, and let's call it any, because we don't know what kind of variable that's going to be. It could be anything that comes in. That's why any is appropriate here. So it'll take objects, it'll take a website, it'll take an API call, whatever, and whatever comes after. All right, let's do a res send, right? And we'll say your custom info page goes here, you know, kind of thing. That's where the info page. This is a route, right? Route for info page. And so instead of me going to my main route, I'm going to go to my info page. I'm just making it up. Okay, let's see if it works. So I save, I transpile, and when I go back in here, let's take a look at what happens with my nodemon. Nodemon saw that I made changes to my JS file because I transpiled and restarted my server. Remember that if you don't restart your server, it won't reflect the change that you made on your JS file. And that's how JavaScript for JavaScript, Node.js, and Express.js works. Every time you make a change, it won't be reflected on the main website unless you restart your server. Right? Actually, it's the same in Apache. If you actually run Apache and you make a change to the backend server, the routes, it won't be reflected until you restart all services on Apache, right? Or IIS, or X, name the server. It's all the same. All right, let's check this out and see if it works. So I'm going to go back here and refresh. And now, when I go info, it says your custom info page goes here. How about if I go to, you know, the main page here? So just press this. It goes Hello Express. What about if I go somewhere else? Like, you know, my custom page, whatever it is, right? It's going to error out. It's going to say cannot get my custom page, right? Well, in here, I can create, through the use of smart routing, I can do some kind of switch statement, right? That says if it's this, then do this. If it's this, then do this. If it's this, then do this, right? I can do a bunch of different ifs if I want to. Costly, but I could do it that way. But now you've got the rudiments for creating routes for your web pages, right? Well, yeah, but we got these ugly pages, you're going to say, Tom. All they are is just like some text, right? How do I set an actual website, right? Like a web page. Well, in order for us to test that, we need a web page to test with. So first off, let's see if my little custom changes works on Azure, right? So what am I going to do? I'm going to go up here before I make any changes. I'm going to stop my server, and I'm going to say git add dot, which adds all my changes, right? And now I'm going to say git commit -m updated server.js to run Express. That's really what I've done here. Press enter. And then I'll say git push origin master. And now this will push up everything to GitHub. When it pushes things on GitHub, both Heroku and Azure right now are looking at my website to see what's going on, right? My GitHub, right? So let's take a look at what it looks like up online. And I don't know which one of these it is, but let's take a look. One of these is the one. There's one of these things that are going to be rolled. So let's try this out. I'm just going to put it in COMP2068, and then it'll be winter 2016, right? And instead of Heroku, because Heroku app wasn't working earlier, and I'll fix that later, it's going to be Azure Websites.net, right? So if it worked, I should be able to go to my website, and it should say, I should be updated in a second with, hey, instead of hello node, it should say hello Express in a second. Give it a second too. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. Where to check to see if that's happening? If I go here to 2068, and if I refresh, and if it's not refreshing it, let's check my deployment on Node, right? So I'm going to refresh this page, and we can see what's going to happen here, right? Because I want to look at my deployment target. So I'm going to go back here and notice I'm looking at COMP2068 lesson 3 Azure Websites.net, and I want to see all my settings, and I want to look at my publishing for my continuous deployment. And whoa, what happened? I see like no deployments found. That's bad. How did that happen, right? Well, wait, see what's going on up here? Still cycling. So let it do its job. Sometimes we're a little fast, and sometimes Azure and stuff takes a moment or so to update. So just be patient is what I'm saying, right? Because sometimes it takes an extra moment. It's unusual that we have none. That's weird. I didn't disconnect anything. And I can always do it again. If I really want to, I can just go like disconnect and just reconnect everything again, right? Well, let's take a look and see if this, hey, there it is, Hello Express. It actually updated. So it actually updated faster than my portal. My portal didn't update, but I'm running Hello Express, right? And let's check out to see if poor Heroku did it. So I'm going to say COMP2068, and we're going to look at Heroku websites, Heroku apps, right? But Heroku app, there it is. And we still get an application error. So something is not functioning properly with Heroku. I got to fix that. But that's okay. As long as it's consistent, I'm happy. Not working, not working. Okay, let's get back here and check this out. So what have I done? All right, so all I've done is created 2 routes. One for the root, the main site. So when I go to my main site, that's what that / means. It's the main site. Right, so if I put in example.com, this is the main index.html that I want to be sent. So let's make an index.html really quickly. And I want to put it in a public folder, right? How do I access that? So first we have to make a public folder really quickly. We're running out of time, right? And in my public folder, so I'll call this thing public, right? I'm going to put a new index.html page, right? So notice how I have a public folder. I want to create a views folder to hold all my views, right? I could put it in public. You know, I could put it just my index.html. For now, it doesn't matter. Let's just like separate it by one page, and let's rename this thing so public is capital, just to make it so that it's a little bit different. Public. Make sure it's not public or something else that comes up, because that'll be bad if you misspell it. Finger typing errors are notoriously bad. Okay, let's add in a new file, which we're going to name index.html. So our first index.html. Yay. Okay, we need to make some kind of template for our index.html, and I'm going to type it in by hand. So I'm going to say, you know, doc type, if I can spell, is equal to HTML, right? I want to have some kind of header file or HTML tag, and in my HTML tag, I'm sorry to do this to you guys, my lang is equal to English. Look at my code here, right? And next to my, inside my HTML tag, I'm going to have a head, right? And next to my head, I want to have a body. And I'm going to press tab, right? That's called emit, right? Shorthand, right? So I mean, I'll show that again. So it looks like this, right? And if I go greater than means contains a head, and a plus means, and next to that head is a body, right? So I take my HTML, my language is equal to English, right? Because I want to put that as an attribute. In square brackets, that means put it, you know, assign an attribute to this. And I can do the same thing for my head and body. I can go further than this, right? So I can kind of partition this off like this with parentheses, right? So my head, inside my head then, I want to have a title tag, right? And my title tag is going to have a title of, you know, hello world. So hello world. Here we go. Hello world. Right. That's going to be my first site. Right. Hello world. Right. And then my that's in my head. That's my title. In my body tag, we'll do the same thing in my body tag. My body tag will have an H1 tag. Right. My H1 tag will have hello world too. Why not? Hello world. Right? And beside my H1 tag, in a paragraph tag, bear with me while I do this thing and make you crazy, right? In a paragraph tag next to it, to my H1 tag, sorry, get this right. I need one more. There we go. Beside my H1 tag, on the same level as my H1 tag, is a paragraph tag, right? Where I'm going to have in some lorem text of about 50 characters, 50 words. Now you might look at that and go, what the hell is he doing, right? It's emit, right? Or Zen Coding if you're using Visual Studio 2013, 2015. It's a shorthand for creating or scaffolding out a web page really quickly without me having to go through and type everything by hand. And if I press tab, I get this, right? With one little tap. Let me undo that so you can see that, right? So type this in, and it's built into Visual Studio Code, so there's nothing to download. If you're using brackets, you have to include a extension from brackets. I know it looks crazy, but I'll explain Emmet another day. All right, cool. So I'm going to press tab. Are you guys all ready for this? You guys got it? By the way, it's being recorded, so worst case, you can always look at it later. Okay, tab. And I got this stuff. I've got my hello world, my title. So I want this page, which is a very simple, silly page with nothing in it. There's no style or anything. I'm not going to attach a style sheet or anything like that for now. Just very basic, right? I want this page to pop out when I go to my main page, right? How do I do that? Well, it's in my public, and it's inside index.html, right? So if I go back to my server.ts file, what I want to say here is when I go to my root, instead of sending hello express, what are the other options? I'm just going to comment this out for now. What are the other options? Well, if I go to res, right, and I can go do a send, look at this, there's send file, there's send status, there's send date. Let's go send file, right? So send file. And I can specify in here the path of the file. I need to be relative, right? What's the relative path? And you have to think to yourself also for a second, what path am I talking about? Is it relative to my server.ts file, or is it relative to my website? It's not relative to your website because it's not the same. So I need to go, my path is, I need to go up one, right? Because, or sorry, let me see, sorry, down one because I'm inside the root. I'm going to go down into public, and then inside, so down into public. So we're going to do this. When we go to a regular thing, we're going to go one dot. One dot is down into public, and then down again into index.html. You can put in index.html like this. If everything works well, then this send file will send my index.html when I hit the root. In order for this to work, I got to reset my server because I'm making a change to the server to do this. I'm creating a new root. I'm rewriting my root. So I'm going to transpile. If I've done everything correctly and everything works, NodeMon is going to restart, right? Let's try this out. So we'll go NodeMon. Yay, NodeMon works. So that's a good indicator that there's no errors that I can detect. Yes.
Basically, get NodeMon to reset the server, or is there a different way of doing it?
That's the easy way. I like using NodeMon. There's other ones. There's Forever. There's NodeMon. There's a bunch of other ones that kind of continuously run the server or whatever, right? But NodeMon is kind of a very simple way of doing it, and it just kind of, if anytime I make a change to this, it just resets it automatically. You can also do it by hand if you feel comfortable doing that, and you can also use gulp and grunt to do it for you as well. Okay, let's check this out. So let's see if it's running the way I want it to. So I'm going to go to my local host here before I check it, localhost 3000, and I got an error, right? It says path must be absolute or specify root to res send file, right? So that's my issue. My issue is I don't have a path. I don't have a path that's proper. And I told you this is the pathing problem that you're going to get run into. So it must be absolute, it says. Okay, it must be absolute. Okay, let's go back. So that means that I can't use this. This is what I'm thinking, public index.html. But there's another problem here you'll see. So I'm going to save this now and rerun it, right? And once I resave this and I go back to NodeMon, it restarts. See, it just restarted again. So server started. So first it stopped it because due to changes, and then it restarted. Let's go back and check if I fixed it by refreshing, right? And you can see that even though I did it again, right, there's still not working properly. What do I need to do to make this path work, right? Well, a good thing to do is always check your documentation, which is on Google. So if I say send file, so if I say express, right, send file, path problem, right? If I just, kind of hold that in, it'll give an example of an absolute path, right, that will work for you. And there's some, again, this is very well documented. Here's an example of where we can use path.join, right? Path.join. Now, in order for me to use this, right, in order for me to use path.join, and Ari, I'm going to ask you what do I need to do? Is path built into Node or Express? Do you know?
I don't think so. You didn't declare it.
I didn't declare it. So let me ask this question. If I go, I'm going to stop this for a second, and this is all my errors, right? Into my main file here, and again, this is just putting it up there for you, right? If I go tsd install path, if I just do that, I'll know if there's anything. Oh, how about this? tsd install path, right? And I'll say -- save because I want to do something. If it does exist, and if there is something like that, so tsd install path doesn't work, right? Because there is no path. Let's try that again. 0 results, right? So path, if there was something like that, if I can install path for something, there'd be another module, then it'd be cool. I do have to, however, include it or import it because it's path is part of Express and Node. Okay, it's part of it. It's kind of built in, a built-in little thing. But this is the code that I need. Path join my dir name with my public folder. And then I'm going to look at index.html. Look at these things here that I'm missing. This is the format here, right? So we can try this out, try and fix it. And let's go back. So if I go back to here, one thing I'm missing here is path. So I'll try this out. I'll say import path, right, is equal to require, and this is right, path. If it doesn't error out, what does that mean? It means it's included, right? There's other ones that are included too, right? Notice how if I look at path now, if I go to, can I do a path.join? If I can do a path.join, that means I got good code editing. That means that I've got everything I need, right? That's one thing I need to do. So in my send file then, right, let's rewrite this thing a little bit. And this is where the hairy stuff gets. It tells you what to do right here. I got to include my dir name, right, path.join, with my directory name, my public folder, and my index.html. That's what I want, all right? So I'll do that, path.join. And inside there, I'm going to say, here's my paths. So what I want to look at is dir name, so double underscore dir name, right, if that works, right, comma, the path to my file, which is my public page. We're going to talk about this in a second. And then my index.html. That's what they showed us to do, right? By the way, this is not correct, but we'll see it. Okay, so let's just reroute that. I want to transpile, and I want to run NodeMon again. And if there's an error with what I've put in, NodeMon will cough out an error, right? So we're good. NodeMon doesn't see any problem. But that doesn't mean that this will run. If I go back to my localhost 3000 and go refresh, although it does, right? So notice what I did. I used another module, right, path, Path is a built-in module that's built into Node and Express. I don't have to download, I don't have to do npm install. And what path does is it kind of fixes all those pathing problems we have when we do routing, right? And what I'm doing here is I'm saying, take my local directory name and join my public folder with my index.html to the path. So when I send file, I'm sending this whole path. This whole path is going to be transformed into the exact path that I need when I go here. And we're going to go into more detail about this later on, this send file stuff, right? But I can do the same thing if I had, instead of my path, one more thing before we go. Here's my index.html. I'm going to duplicate this thing, right? So I'm going to kind of copy, and I'm going to put a new, actually I'll just make a new file. I'm going to make a new file, and we'll call this info.html, right? And in my index, I'll just copy the whole thing in my index and go into my info and paste, right? But instead of hello world up here, we'll say my info, and then I'll put something like, just to prove it, here is my info, right? There we go, and some more lorem ipsum stuff, right? Server.ts file. It's getting a little hairy, right? But you know, again, I want to do this path join stuff, right? So I'm going to take my path join, copy this whole thing, put it over here, and now when I go to my path, everything is exactly the same except for this, which is going to be info.html. So I'm actually going to the next path, right? Make sense? Let's see if this works. I'm going to transpile, which is going to reset my node mon, right? There it is. And if I go back out to the web and refresh, right? That's cool. But what if I go to info? And I should get info, but look what I get. I get users, comments, desktop, blah, 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 blah. How come I get this? I've already included path, or my public in my path, right? Yeah. Oh yeah, that would be bad. This is the actual path that I'm using right now. Take a look. This is pretty, actually this is good. I made a mistake, but we actually see what we're actually sending. This is what we actually get from our send. Right, so let's go back. Thank you. So send file. Yeah, that's it. I made a mistake. Okay, and let's just transpile that again. So transpile that, right? And I go back out to there and refresh. And there's my info. So I can do two things. I have two paths now. I can go to the root, right? And I can go to hello world, or I can specifically go to info, and it'll be my info page. Hey, now that I have my roots, I can create links that go to that in a navigation bar, right? I can't do navigation unless I get routing. No routing, no navigation, right? Because we're doing things from scratch with Node and Express, there are no routes that exist for us at all, okay? Okay, cool, cool. So we've got this. Let's deploy it on GitHub really quickly. We're done. So let's stop this thing. We'll say git add dot git commit -m, and we'll say added path, pathing, and I don't know, HTML files. And we'll say sample HTML files. That's what we did, right? Sample HTML files. There we go. Some samples to make this thing go. And we'll say git push origin master. And that'll push it out to Git, which in turn will deploy, hopefully, to Azure, right? Now let's just refresh this thing and see if it's going to take the deployments. It's going to watch. Azure, what Azure is doing is it's watching the GitHub website, and it's saying, or the repository, and it's saying, hey, has there changes been made? And if there are, then it's going to redeploy. There it is. So pathing and sample HTML files actually deployed. And let's take a look if I have a change here, right? So if I refresh, sometimes it takes a second to do so, right? Notice how, here it is, hello world. And if I go info over here, I also get, here's my info, right? So it's kind of cool. It's live right on Azure, right? Questions around this, what I've been doing, right? So again, I set up Node earlier, and now we've got an Express app. Express is like Node, but it has additional middleware and functionality packed into the module. Almost done. Packed into the module that Node doesn't have, right? That's what it has. So that's what Express has. We've deployed it to GitHub, and we've auto-deployed it to both Heroku, which doesn't work right now, and I'll fix that, and Azure on the other side. Remember, tonight, your Lab 2 is due, tonight at midnight, where you deploy the same stuff. If you might have had a chance to do it with me, right? Because we went through the whole process. If you did it already, you have to upload the link for GitHub, and you're linked to your live cloud site, right, up on Blackboard into that space on Blackboard. And if you've done that, you get full marks. You get 2%, right, for your lab, right? Next week, remember that your site structure that we talked about, and for your assignment number 1 is due Wednesday, right? When we meet on Thursday, I want to get feedback from you guys, and I want to take a look at what you got, what you're thinking. Okay, so we'll spend a little bit of time on Wednesday or on Thursday talking about your portfolio site that's due the following week. Guys, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.